Sandman.
Greetings, friends. The most mystical and frightening holiday of the year, Halloween, is approaching. Many of us are looking forward to it, and in the meantime, I offer you to pass the time and listen to some scary true ghost stories, shrouded in the shadow of horror and frighten your imagination. One of the most infamous and well-known ghost stories started on November 13, 1974, when Ronald Joseph DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family in Amityville, New York. However, it wasn't the six-person homicide that put the sleepy little Long Island town on the map, it was the home's paranormal activity, which began 13 months later when it was acquired by the Lutz family. Of course, details of the haunting, like most hauntings, are unconfirmed, but the Lutzes claimed that during their 28-day stay they witnessed several strange and unexplainable events, that is to say doors flew off their hinges, slime seeped out of walls, and there were ghosts. George Lutz used to wake up at 3:15 every morning, the exact time the DeFeo murders were carried out. Since reports of the haunting first surfaced, the Amityville home has been the backdrop for several books, documentaries, and films. You've probably seen, or at the very least, heard about, The Conjuring. The 2013 film featuring Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson, and Ron Livingston was very well received, but did you know the supernatural thriller was based on a true story? Yes, the Perron family really existed and lived in a haunted home. So what happened? According to the parents, their Rhode Island residence was the site of several strange occurrences. Things moved at random, there were unexplained noises, and yes, ghosts. The parents even experienced the occasional possession. And while their home was not the site of a mass murder, many children died under mysterious or suspicious circumstances, and their deaths have been tied, albeit loosely, to legendary Satanist Bathsheba Sherman. When the Dakota was built, it was something of a modern marvel. According to Curb New York, an 1885 real estate record and builder's guide regarded it as one of the noblest apartment houses of the world. And since its opening, it has housed many famous residents, including Peter Tchaikovsky, Lauren Bacall, Rosemary Clooney, Connie Chung, and Maury Povich. But the Dakota made a new name for itself after John Lennon and Yoko Ono moved into the building in 1973. Why? Because Lennon claimed he saw crying lady ghost roaming the halls, and after Lennon died, directly in front of the Dakota said she witnessed Lennon's ghost sitting at his piano. While this one is not a ghost story, the tale of the Jersey Devil has withstood the test of time, and for good reason. Stories of the winged beast are truly terrifying. But who or what is the Jersey Devil? The infamous creature haunting the Pine Barrens is the child of Mother Leeds, a Pines resident who conceived her 13th child in 1735. At the time, Leeds had no idea how she could care for, let alone afford, another kid, and so, in exasperation, she raised her hands to the heavens and proclaimed, "Let this one be a devil." Leeds got her wish. Moments after birth, her healthy baby boy grew horns and claws and bat-like wings. Legend has it the devil then killed his mother before attacking onlookers. In February 1858, a steamboat named Eliza Battle set out on a cruise down Alabama's Tombigbee River. On board were 60 passengers and more than 1,200 bales of cotton. But when the cotton caught fire on March 1, guests and crew were overcome by smoke and flames. 33 perished on, or in, the Tombigbee. It is said those ill-fated passengers haunt the river to this very day, and on brisk nights, people have claimed to see the Eliza Battle in the misty waters. Much like The Conjuring, The Bell Witch is the subject of two films, An American Haunting and The Blair Witch Project, as well as several podcasts and books. But where did the witch come from? Rumor has it the Bell Witch first appeared in the early 1800s, when the Bell family, for whom the witch was named, moved to Tennessee. After settling into their new home, the Bells began hearing strange noises, including dogs barking, chains rattling, and a woman whispering, and the latter became known as the Bell Witch. Of course, no one knows her true identity, but legend has it she's the ghost of a former neighbor, Kate Batts. It is also believed the witch played a role in the untimely loss of John Bell, who died from poisoning. Tunnelton may be a small, unincorporated town in rural Indiana, but it is big in the ghost hunting community. Why? Because Tunnelton is home to the Tunnelton Tunnel, also known as the Big Tunnel, where it is said numerous ghosts still linger, both on and beneath the grounds. However, the most famous tenant is Henry Dixon, a night watchman whose body was found just inside the tunnel in 1908. Dixon's murder was never solved, and many have reported seeing the watchman on patrol, lantern in hand. Locals have also been chased by Dixon. While the origins of Hamburger Man are unclear, the reason for his moniker is obvious. Urban legend says the half-man, half-monster kidnaps his victims, drags them deep into the woods of Sand Hills State Park in Hutchinson, Kansas, and once there grinds his victims into hamburger meat. In the summer of 1863, hundreds of thousands of soldiers descended on Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and many lost their life. According to How Stuff Works, more than 50,000 infantrymen were left dead, wounded, or missing, and rumor has it some of these soldiers still haunt the battlefields, particularly Devil's Den, a rocky enclave where 1,800 died. One woman claims she felt a hand grab her ankle at the historic site, and several others have seen ghosts appear, both in person and in photographs. It is said numerous spirits haunt the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana. However, the most well-known ghost is Chloe who, according to the plantation's official website, is the former slave and love interest of plantation owner Clark Woodruff. Their affair ended abruptly. Woodruff caught her eavesdropping on him, and as punishment, cut off her ear, but Chloe allegedly exacted her revenge. She poisoned the rest of his family. Unfortunately, Chloe's peers did not defend her actions. The other slaves knew what she had done and hanged her. It is believed Chloe resides on the property to this very day. More than a century later, one brutal night still haunts the small town of Villisca, Iowa. In the early hours of the morning of June 10, 1912, Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 children, and family friends Lena and Ina Stillinger, were bludgeoned to death in their sleep at the Moores' home. As the investigation unfolded, it was found that the doors of the house were locked, all but 2 windows were covered, and the murder weapon, an axe, was left at the scene. The killings remain unsolved. In 1994, the house's new owners restored the property to a near-exact replica of how it looked at the time of the murders. Paranormal investigators have named the Villisca Axe Murder House as one of the most haunted in the country, with a ghost hunter even stabbing himself after a night spent in the home. The house is open for day tours and stays for $428 a night, with many occupants reporting they've had some sort of supernatural encounter, like hearing voices, while sleeping overnight. This haunted English mansion is what supposedly inspired Henry James to write his renowned horror novella, The Turn of the Screw, which in turn was reworked for television for Netflix's The Haunting of Bly Manor. As the story goes, in January 1765, the Ricketts family moved into the manor after renting it from a woman named Lady Stawell. Almost immediately, the inhabitants and the staff, particularly Mrs. Ricketts, reported multiple instances of observing ghostly beings and hearing disturbing sounds. Sightings included a swiftly walking tall woman in a silk dress and a cloaked figure. While living at the mansion, Mrs. Ricketts heard gunshots, slamming doors, footsteps, shrieks, and moans. They began before I went to bed, and were heard till after broad day in the morning. A shrill female voice would begin, and then 2 others with Man-like tone seemed to join in the discourse. Though this conversation sounded as if close to me, I never could distinguish words, she wrote at the time, according to the National Trust. After 7 years, the Ricketts moved out once the home was deemed unfit for occupation. When it was demolished in 1793, workers found a box on the grounds that contained a small skull. It was thought the remains were from the child of Lord Stawell and his sister-in-law, Honoria, who were decreed the ghosts of Hinton Abner. The property has been reconstructed multiple times over the decades to reflect the era, and is now under the care of the U.K.'s National Trust. The legend of Huggin Molly has been passed down for generations in the small town of Abbeville, Alabama. It's said that the ghost of Molly, a cloaked 7-foot-tall woman, roams the streets of Abbeville at night. If children cross her while out and about, she'll chase them, envelope them in an unwelcome embrace, and scream in their ears. Legends of her origin vary from versions that she was a woman who tragically lost her baby, to a local professor who was attempting to keep kids from venturing out at night. She's become so ingrained in the folklore of the town, that there is a beloved local cafe named after her. Anybody who grew up in Abbeville grew up knowing the legend of Huggin Molly, a native of the town, Jimmy Rain. If your mother or dad didn't want you to be out after dark, they'd tell you Huggin Molly would get you. And you believed it too.